Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, guys, so are you able to see my screen? Are you able to?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can, sir.
Perfect, perfect.
Yes.
So, today we are going to discuss VMware Workstation, right? We are going to do some labs as well, right? And I will also explain some of the options of VMware Workstation so that you can know. If you don't know how to install this product, I do have some lectures I uploaded on my YouTube channel. So you guys can watch my videos that how you can install VMware Workstation. So I'm not going to discuss the installation portion, but I am going to discuss how we can create folders and how we can create virtual machines and how we can install operating system. So if you visit my YouTube channel, you will find a lot of videos regarding VMware Workstation. I think one of the video is uh, this one, VMware Workstation Technical Training batch number 22. It's almost 2 hours lectures, so you guys can also watch this lectures. I do have this lecture, um, 1 hour and 1 hour. So this is also the complete training of the VMware Workstation. So you guys can also watch this lecture if you don't understand what I'm saying right now. But hopefully I will cover all this stuff in today's lecture. What is the benefit of using VMware Workstation? So basically we have a technology called virtualization, right? And this technology let us run multiple operating system on a single hardware. We can run multiple operating system on a single hardware. So why we need to run multiple operating system on a single hardware? So you can there is multiple use cases, different use cases. So let me tell you one of the use cases. For example, you have a machine. This is your laptop, right? And you have installed Windows 10, for example, on your laptop. Just like you can see here, I have this machine and I have Windows 10 installed and I have almost 8 GB of RAM on this machine, right? Let me close some of the applications so that I can have more available space. Let me close some of the applications. So let's say this is your laptop and I have 8 GB RAM on my laptop, right? I have, for example, 4 cores of CPU on my laptop, and let's suppose I have 1 TB of disk in my laptop, right? I have some applications running on this machine. Let's say you are a university student, right? Or maybe you are learning new technology. For example, you are you have enrolled yourself in Linux training, right? Or maybe you are in the university and maybe you are a developer, right? And you need to install a tool and that tool is only supported on the Linux operating system, or maybe it doesn't support, their tool is not compatible with Windows 10, you need to install Windows 8.1, let's say. So in that case you need to remove this operating system from your hardware and you need to install another operating system. So if you have multiple if you have multiple operating system, if you have multiple applications or if you have to run multiple tools on different operating system, that's not possible to run it on a single hardware. So we can use a software called VMware Workstation, right? we can use that software. Let me change the color, and that is a software. You need to install this software. You can download this software from VMware site for up to 30 days. You can use it, and then you need to purchase a license. So sometime we have some VMware has some different programs like VMUG, or if you are a VMware vExpert, then in that case you will get a free license keys from VMware site. So we are not going to discuss the license portion, and do not ask me for the license keys right now. We will discuss it some other day. So let's focus on the product. So I already installed this product as I mentioned in the start of the lecture. You can just download the product from the VMware site and you can install it. The installation portion is very simple, just like you install MS Office or any other software. You can just install it by double clicking it and you are good to go. And you can see here we have this software, and I do have this Windows operating Server 2019 virtual machine created already. So let me delete it so that I can show you from the start. You can see this is the interface of the software. Currently I have VMware Workstation 16 Pro, but the latest version is 17, so you can download 17 version from the VMware side and you can install it, right? So the installation portion is very simple. Once you download this, once you install this product, this is the interface. So why what is the benefit of this software? We can create virtual machine, and then we can install operating system, and we can run multiple operating system at the same time. Most of the time student ask me that how many virtual machines we can create on VMware Workstation. It depends on your hardware resources. Like for example, your laptop has 12 GB of RAM, and then you can create 3 virtual machine and you can assign 2 GB RAM to each virtual machine. That's fine. If you have a laptop having 64 GB of RAM, then you can create more virtual machine. It is also possible that having 12 GB RAM you can only create one virtual machine. How is that? Maybe you need to create a virtual machine of 8 GB RAM. Then in that case obviously you cannot create more than one virtual machine, because you cannot create virtual machine without having the resources available. So the number of virtual machines and how many virtual machines you can run at the same time, it depends on the available resources on your laptop, right? So if you are doing this practice, or if you want to do practice on this VMware Workstation, I would say your laptop should have minimum of 8 GB RAM available. I think I have a question. Yes, Mr. Nphoenix0x Neo, please ask a question. You can unmute yourself. Okay, he cannot hear me. Please connect your audio. Okay guys, so that's the story. So once you install this product, the first step I would recommend to go to edit tab, right? Once you go to edit tab, click on preferences and define a location. You can see here I have mentioned D drive, and I have already created a folder on my D drive virtual machine. By default in your case it would be C in document folder. So I would recommend that first you need to confirm your available space on your disk on your machine. So you can see here I have 51.1 GB RAM, which is enough, sorry, available disk, which is enough for today's lab. So I will use this D drive, and I have already created a folder virtual machines, and there I can specify that folder. So that's the thing. So whenever I create a virtual machine, a folder will be created for each virtual machine. So When you create a virtual machine here, right? When you create a virtual machine here, keep in mind that for each virtual machine, a folder will be created. Every virtual machine will have a separate folder, which includes all virtual machines files, right? So if you create two virtual machine, two folders will be created. Each virtual machine has its own VRAM, vCPU, vdisk, vnic. Just like you have a physical machine and you have RAM, you have physical CPU, and you have physical disk, and you have physical network adapter, Wi-Fi or Ethernet adapter. So same is the case here. Okay, if you have a question in your mind that how much RAM I can assign to a virtual machine, how much maximum RAM I can assign to a virtual machine. So if you have 8 GB of physical RAM, you can assign up to 8 VRAM, 8 GB VRAM, but it also depends on the operating system you are installing here. For example, you have Windows 10 or Windows 7 32-bit operating system. So I think 32-bit operating system can have maximum of 4 GB RAM only, right? So it depends. Okay, sometime I have seen people, many of my students ask me sometime that we have two virtual machines, and to each virtual machine we have assigned 6 GB RAM here and 6 GB RAM here. So how is it possible? Totally we have 8 GB RAM available. But how is it possible that we have assigned 6 GB RAM to each virtual machine? Total 12 GB RAM is assigned, but physically we have only 8 GB RAM. How is it possible? Okay, one thing is maybe you are not going to run both virtual machine at the same time. Maybe you are only running one virtual machine. So if you have multiple virtual machine with if you have assigned RAM to each virtual machine, right? So and you are only running one virtual machine, that's fine. What if you want to run both virtual machine? How is it possible? So keep in mind that we have multiple techniques available, right? We have multiple techniques available to better the performance of the virtual machine. And what are those techniques? One of the technique is called memory ballooning. Memory ballooning. This is one of the technique. What is the purpose of this feature or this techniques or technology? When you create a virtual machine and you assign 6 GB RAM to this virtual machine. Is my voice clear now, guys? Is my voice clear?
Yes, clear now.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if you have a virtual machine, perfect. I think someone is writing on my. Okay, so when you assign 6 GB RAM to a virtual machine and you powered on this virtual machine, and suppose this virtual machine utilization is only 2 GB, so this VMware workstation will take the 4 GB RAM back from that virtual machine. So from the physical RAM only 2 GB RAM will be minus, right? Because this virtual machine utilization is only 2 GB RAM, and that this VMware workstation can assign the remaining RAM, the free RAM, to another virtual machine. So this is how things are work. Do you want me to reboot my internet if my voice is not clear, guys? Okay, I think I am having some voice issue, so let me restart.
Your, excuse me, sir, your voice is not clear.
Okay, sorry guys. I was having some voice issue. Hopefully it's okay now. So this is also possible that you can assign, uh, let's say you have 8 GB physical RAM and you have assigned 6 GB VRAM to this virtual machine and 6 GB RAM to this virtual machine. That's fine because the hypervisor. Okay, what is hypervisor? Basically, VMware Workstation is called a type 2 hypervisor. It is a type 2 hypervisor. In virtualization technology, we use a term hypervisor. This is basically we have two types of hypervisor actually. Uh, Let me write it. So if someone asks you what is hypervisor, you can let them know that this is a software or operating system which make our server machine or our computer to run multiple operating system on a single machine, right, at the same time. So we have two types of hypervisor. One is called type 1 hypervisor and the other one is called type 2 hypervisor, right? So type 1 hypervisor, we can install it directly on the hardware, right? We install this hypervisor on a hardware directly. This is my hardware and I have installed hypervisor. And what is type 2 hypervisor? On a hardware we install operating system first. This is my hardware and I have installed operating system and then we install hypervisor on top of the operating system. So is my voice clear, guys? Someone is telling me that he is not able to hear my voice. Okay. So hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, we can call type 1 hypervisor bare metal hardware, bare metal hypervisor.
Yes, exactly. Type 1 hypervisor is also called bare metal hypervisor that we can install it directly on the hardware. Okay, Nasir Hussain. Let me change my internet again. Hopefully it will be working now. I'm sorry guys, I don't know, it's a rainy day or maybe it's a cloudy day, which is why my internet is not that much clear. So is it okay now? Hopefully my voice is clear now. If not, then I need to reboot my modem. So basically, uh, VMware Workstation, is it a type 2 hypervisor or is it a type 1 hypervisor? VMware Workstation is a type 2 hypervisor. We have another product, VMware Fusion. It is also a type 2 hypervisor. What is the difference between these two products? VMware Workstation can be installed on uh, Linux operating system and Windows operating system, and VMware Fusion is uh, designed for Mac operating system. We have another hypervisor called Oracle VirtualBox. This is also a type 2 hypervisor. So inshallah some other time we will discuss Oracle VirtualBox as well, so that you can have a knowledge of using Oracle VirtualBox as well. In type 2 hypervisor we have VMware ESXi, we have Microsoft Hyper-V, and we have Citrix hypervisor, and the previous name was Zen server, right? That's the type 1 hypervisor. So is my are you guys not able to hear me? I don't know what's
Sir,
going.
your voice is clear. Your voice is clear.
Yes,
Perfect.
sir.
Okay, please connect your audio. Okay, no worries. If you are not able to hear me clearly, I will upload this lecture to my YouTube channel and you can watch it. So you can see here we already have VMware Workstation installed, and now we are going to learn how we can create virtual machine. You can click file and you can click new virtual machine, and we do have an option called open. What does open mean? It means that if you have already a virtual machine created, you can also deploy a ready-made virtual machine. Ready-made virtual machine is called virtual appliances, right? Virtual appliances. Like you can see, I need a virtual machine, database, virtual appliances. So when you click database virtual appliances, right, you can download a ready-made virtual machine from the internet and you can deploy it on your VMware workstation and you can run it. I don't know what's going on with everyone. Some people are saying they are not able to hear me, some are saying my screen is not visible. And if we got disconnected and after 4 minutes, please join me again. Okay, so you can also deploy a virtual appliances or you can create a new virtual machine. So in today's lecture we are going to learn how to create a new virtual machine. Once you click here, you will see two options here. One is typical and the other one is custom, right? So typical option is used for beginners and custom option is used for those users who has knowledge about different options, different controller types and the advanced option. So today we are going to discuss custom option, right? So that we can learn more options today, right? So I just select custom, right? You can also follow me once you are watching this video and you want to do practice, and you can click next. Once you click next, you will see hardware options. What does it mean? For example, you have another machine and that machine has VMware Workstation 15 installed, right? So then you can select Workstation 15. It means that although this is VMware Workstation 16, but the virtual hardware will be of 15. And then you can also run that virtual machine on your VMware Workstation 15 as well. Just like in MS Office, we save a file for the older version, save as and for older version. Same is the case here. If you have, best option is to use the latest option. The reason is you have more facilities available. So in VMware Workstation, you can assign up to 128 GB RAM to a virtual machine if you have physical RAM available and if your operating system support that much RAM, right? So currently let's keep it as it is, right? 16, and when you click next, you will see this option. So we are not going to install any operating system right now. So you have to select this option. I will install the operating system later because we are just creating the virtual machine now. And you can click next. Here you need to select the operating system. Some people ignore it. That's not a good option. You need to select a proper operating system. For example, I'm going to install Windows 10. So I am going to select Windows 10 64-bit, right? You can also select Windows 10, that would be a 32-bit hardware. But I'm going to select this one, so I just click this one, right? If you are going to install Linux operating system, you can select Linux and then you can select any Linux flavor. For example, if you are installing a Linux flavor and that flavor is not mentioned here, then you can also select other option and you can select that, right? So let me select Microsoft Windows and this one. Let's suppose you are going to install Windows 11 and that is not mentioned here. You can also select Windows 10 for that, right? Or you can upgrade your 16 version to 17. You can also upgrade it. Guys, we are going to disconnect in 1 minute. So if you got disconnected, feel free to join me again using the same link. So let's take a 30-second break. You can see here, uh, you can select the correct operating system, right? And then you can click next. Here you can define a name. So this is not the name of the Windows or inside the computer name. It is basically a name of the virtual machine which will be visible in the inventory here. So you can name it, let's suppose virtual machine 01 dash Windows 10. You can name it any name, right? And you can also change the default location from this location, or you can change a location only for this virtual machine, right? And then you can click next. Here you can select the firmware type. So most of the cases, if your hardware doesn't have the UEFI mode option available, so you can also select BIOS for that. What is the difference between these two? We will discuss it sometime. But for the latest operating system, we preferred this option. So let's say we are going to select BIOS for now. Once you click next, it will ask you how many processor do you want, how many CPU do you want to assign to this virtual machine. So do not assign the CPU from your own uh, uh, I mean, do not assign it without knowing your physical core. So let me check my physical CPUs first. I can see here how many CPU I have. I have total 4. It means that I can assign up to 4 CPU to my virtual machine, not more than 4. So 2 are also enough. You can also keep it 1. So 1 is also enough. So I just assign 1 core. That is fine. If you have more than 4 cores available, or if you have maximum CPUs available, you can assign multiple CPU here, right? So now we have 2 cores here. How much RAM you can assign? It also depends on the available RAM you have. So we have almost how much RAM available? We have very less RAM available, so I think 2 GB RAM is enough for this virtual machine. When you click next, it will ask you for the connectivity option, because as I mentioned that every virtual machine has VRAM, vCPU. We discussed these two options, and now we have this one. So by default a single VNIC will be assigned. So now this option means that where do you want to connect your virtual network adapter? Bridge, NAT, host only. So if you do not know about these options, I would recommend to watch my video of how you can connect virtual machine. So we will discuss this once we go to the networking topics of this training. So once we start the proper networking topics, then I will explain the difference between these three options, right? So you can select any option right now. We are not going to explain it. So let's keep it as it is and click next. Now it is asking for a SCSI controller. Basically, a SCSI controller is responsible to carry your data to the storage, the virtual disk. Each virtual machine has a virtual disk, right? Every virtual machine has a virtual disk. right? So now, which controller do you want to use it? The best practice is to use the default option, keep it as it is. But for some operating system, you may need to change these options. And you can ask this, or you can check in the internet as well. Or maybe you can check it like this, that uh, which SCSI controller for Windows 10 virtual machine, and you will get the answer, right? That which SCSI controller is preferred or best for this one. So you can also check the difference between these controllers. So for now, you just keep it as it is, the default one, and just click next. Okay, virtual disk type. By default, this is selected, so I would also recommend to select this one. So if you need to change it, you can change it. And let me tell you a story. Once I was creating a virtual machine for Microtech router OS, and I was not able to detect the virtual disk, and then I googled it, and Google told me to change this controller type and also to change the disk type, and then I was able to see my disk. So these are we have different use cases to change these options. So for Windows 10, you can select this one, because when you select our operating system version during creation of the virtual machine, the VMware Workstation is responsible to give you these to select the specific or correct options for you. So they already selected this option for us, so we will keep this option as it is, and we can click next. We also want to create a new virtual machine. If you already have a disk available, sometime you purchase a laptop and you ask the shopkeeper that you don't need a disk because you already have a disk available. So what you do, you just give the disk to the shopkeeper and they attach the existing disk to the laptop. So if you do have a virtual disk available, let's suppose you have a virtual disk you created for the other virtual machine, and now you want to add that virtual disk to this virtual machine, you can select the second option, right? And what does it mean, use a physical disk? So let me explain this option. Keep in mind that let's suppose you have a 1 TB disk. This is a physical disk. So this physical disk will be formatted in NTFS file system. This is because we have Windows 10 installed. What is NTFS file system? You need to check for that. And we do have a topics of in this training, that what is the difference between NTFS and FAT32. We will discuss it. Every virtual machine has a virtual disk, and that virtual disk type is VMDK. So when you create a virtual machine, a VMDK file is created for that virtual machine. Let's say you have assigned a 20 GB disk, right, to this virtual machine. And when you install operating system on this virtual machine, Windows 10, what will happen? The VMDK will be formatted in NTFS file system. So keep in mind that whenever you store a data on the virtual machine, it doesn't store directly on the physical machine. The data will be stored on the virtual disk. So for example, you have 2 GB data stored. So when you store 2 GB data on the virtual machine, the VMDK size will be 2 GB. So when you store 3 GB data on the virtual machine, the VMDK size will become 3 GB. And from the physical machine, the 3 GB space will be minus. Right? Any question, guys?
No, sir.
Okay. So every virtual machine has a virtual disk, right? And uh, the virtual disk type is VMDK, right? And when you store data on the virtual machine, the VMDK size will be increased and the space will be minus from the physical disk. So when you want to create a partition on your virtual machine, it will not affect your physical disk because you are doing partition of your VMDK, right? So whatever you do inside the virtual machine, it will not affect your physical data or your physical disk. Keep in mind, when you select use a physical disk, it means that if you have a separate another disk available, another physical disk available, you can assign that physical disk directly to virtual machine, and we call it raw device mapping. Raw device mapping. Guys, I have a call, give me 1 minute. So we call it raw device mapping. So when
सर
you
जी हेलो
mhm.
सर जी ये लैंग्वेज चेंज करें उर्दू में बात करें ताकि हमें समझ आ जाए
Actually, I have another video available on my YouTube channel, which is a Urdu version. You can watch that lecture.
ओके 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 जी थैंक्स
Okay, so you can also select this option for a virtual machine. Use a physical disk. With this option, you can give access to a virtual machine to a physical disk, right? So let me select create a new virtual disk. What will happen? A virtual disk is composed of one or more files on the host file, which will appear as a single hard disk to the guest operating system. Virtual disk can easily be copied or moved on the same host, or we will discuss these options. So you should select this option if you are a beginner now. So I just select this option. Once you click next, then you can assign.
Hello, Professor. This is
Mhm.
Sajad.
Okay.
Um, After this lecture is completed, will you download and upload it to us?
Yep, I will upload this lecture to my YouTube channel. You can watch it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
No
Appreciate it.
problem. No problem. So we are showing this option. How much disk you are going to assign. So let me just give you some, show you something. As you can see here, the virtual machine will be created on this folder, virtual machine, which is on D drive. And how much space I have available on my D drive? 51.1 GB free space is available. So technically I can only assign less than 51 GB RAM, sorry, disk or capacity to my virtual machine. But I can also use 100 GB. How is it possible? When you select 100 GB and you create a virtual machine, by default the virtual machine disk will be empty because we have not stored any data on the virtual machine. So let's say you store 10 GB data on your virtual machine, the VMDK size will be 10 GB only, and it will only utilize 10 GB of your physical space. But if you select 100, if you check this button, allocate all disk space now, and you create a virtual machine, the VMDK file size will be 100 GB even if you have not stored any of the data. In advanced level, in my vSphere training, we call it thick provision and thin provision. Okay, sir, the compatibility of virtual machine with the physical machine is necessary. May mean can we install VMware Workstation Pro on second generation physical machine, or we only need RAM and storage? Okay, basically it also need, okay, you are right, Mr. Wakas. Uh, let's say your physical machine doesn't support Windows 11 and you want to install Windows 11 on the virtual machine. So in that case, uh, maybe you get an error because uh, at the end you have the virtual machine is utilizing your physical resources, right? So the virtual machine operating system or whatever you are installing on the virtual machine, it also depends on your physical machine compatibility. For example, you want to run a game in your virtual machine, and that game required graphic card, and you do not have a graphic card available on your physical machine, so it's not gonna work. So I hope I answer your question.
हेलो सर।
Yes, Mr. Furkan.
जी, ये स्टार्ट में जो हम इंस्टॉल करते हैं ना वर्चुअल मशीन,
Hmm.
इसके बाद इसमें लाइसेंस मांगता है एक, और एक फ्री होता है। ये फ्री 30 डेज के लिए होता है, और लाइसेंस ये क्या, इसके बारे में थोड़ी बता दें।
So basically, I already explained that do not ask me about licensing because you install a VMware Workstation, you will get it for 30 days is a free. And if you want to discuss a licensing, if you need a license key, you need to purchase it from the VMware side. If you cannot purchase it, you can join some programs of VMware like VMUG or vExpert program, right? So there are multiple options available, and some people use the crack version, so you can also search for that. So
थैंक यू सर।
no problem.
सर
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है।
Mm-hmm.
सर क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये ईवीएम वर्कस्टेशन और वर्चुअल बॉक्स, अगर वर्चुअल बॉक्स लाइफ टाइम फ्री होता है सर, फिर हम क्यों ये वीएम वेयर स्टेशन यूज करते हैं?
Okay, so your question is why we use VMware Workstation when we have an option of VirtualBox. So it depends on the features and the options or the reliability. What you can do, I would suggest to install VirtualBox on another machine and install VMware Workstation on one machine, and you can do the comparison of the options available. So if you are comfortable with Oracle VirtualBox, then it's fine. You can use Oracle VirtualBox, right? It means that some people are Google Chrome lover and some people are comfortable with Mozilla Firefox. Some people are using VLC player and some people are using GOM player. So it depends. I'm basically a VMware uh, expert, so which is why I always preferred VMware Workstation, VMware ESXi, VMware NSX, VMware Horizon, which is why I'm using this product. And I would also select.
Hello.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Sajad, I think you
I'm
have a
sorry.
question.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. My first question is, what is the difference? What is the difference between host and unhost?
Basically, host. When in virtualization technology, when we say host, host machine or host operating system, right? Let me explain it. This is a host.
Also, I just wanna.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I know you're gonna explain it, but I'm also on my way to go pray. So I'll listen to as much as I can, and then we'll proceed with prayer. Inshallah.
Okay, no worries. Host machine is a machine, a hardware where the hypervisor is running, right? And host operating system, this one, the operating system on which the hypervisor is installed. So in virtualization, when we say host, it is a hardware or it is operating system on where we install the hypervisor. And when we say guest, virtual machine is called guest machine. And when we say guest operating system installed on the virtual machine is called guest operating system. So I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No worries.
And we'll be back soon after we pray.
Sure, sure.
Thank
So when you select allocate all disk space now, it means that uh, the VMDK size of the virtual machine will be 100 GB and it will minus 100 GB space from the physical machine. So why we select this option? If you have a critical application, if you want to install a database or any other critical application on the virtual machine and you want to reserve a space for that virtual machine, then you can select this option. I would recommend to leave this option as it is. Do not check this option if you are doing a practice. What is these two option means? So when you select store virtual disk as a single disk, single file, what will happen? A single VMDK file will be created for this virtual machine. So whatever you store on the virtual machine, a single VMDK file size will be increased. So for example, you have stored 50 GB of data on your virtual machine, right? So the VMDK size, a single VMDK size will be 50 GB. And in future, if you want to move that virtual machine, then you require a 50 GB USB or something else like that. So let's say you have 32 GB of USB and you want to move this virtual machine using this USB. It's not possible because a single VMDK file size is 50 GB. So some people use this option. Most of the people split virtual machine disk into multiple files. It means that multiple VMDK file will be created, right? So that if you want to move the virtual machine, you can move it in parts. So I would recommend this option for now, and up to you if you want to select this option or this option. It's up to you, and you can also read this. Splitting the disks make it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer, but may reduce performance with very large disk, right? So it both option has a use cases available. Yes, the major difference is a single file will be created, a single VMDK will be created, and in that case multiple VMDK file will be created. And it also affect sometime if you have more data stored on your virtual machine, so multiple file case the performance will be slow as compared to a single file option. So if you are planning to move the virtual machine to another physical machine, then this one. So LSI logic we will discuss it. This is basically a controller, SCSI controller options. I will share the documentation if possible. Let's focus on this thing now. When you click next, right, a VMDK file will be created with this name, and that is the VMDK file. 100 GB disk file will be created using this file name. And when you click next, you can review your options. You can also customize the hardware now, or you can customize it later. You can click finish, and once you click finish, you can see a virtual machine is created, and you can also confirm the folder, and you can see a folder is created and a single VMDK file. You can see this one, a single VMDK file is created. Currently the file size is 12.5 GB and we have selected 100 GB, but still we are showing only 12.5 MB space. The reason is we have not stored anything yet. So when you power on the virtual machine and start operating system installation, and let's say it utilize 10 GB of space, so the VMDK size will become 10 GB, and 10 GB space will be minus from drive D, right? So it's not going to affect any of your physical data because you are storing the data on the virtual disk, and the virtual disk file is stored as a VMDK file, and you can also confirm it, VMDK. So now let's discuss some of the options here. You can edit virtual machine settings, and you can remove printer driver if you do not need. So I just remove the printer driver. If you want to add another disk, let's say you want to do practice of something and you need multiple disks, and you can attach another disk as well, hard drive, and you can select 10 GB disk. So how many disks we have now? We have total 10 disk available to my machine. So let's say you have assignment from your university, and they are asking you to uh, do a practice on two disk. So you cannot purchase a physical disk, but you can create a virtual machine and you can attach another virtual disk. If you want to assign another virtual network adapter, you can also assign it. You can click add and you can assign it, right? That is possible. NVMe basically, Wakas and Hush, I already told you that these are the different virtual disk type or SCSI controller type. So that's a separate story. I'm not a storage expert, but you can explain this or you can discuss this with one of the storage expert, or you can Google it. These are basically storage controller and virtual disk type. So if you want to remove the disk, you can select the disk and you can remove it. Let's say you do not want sound card, you can also remove the sound card. Why I am removing some of the hardware from the virtual machine? So let me tell you the story. No, not anyone. It depends on the operating system. You should select the default option, Mr. Wakas. Always try to keep the virtual disk, the virtual machine files or resources or hardware very low. I mean, if you do not require USB controller, remove it, right? So if when you remove the different hardwares from the virtual machine, it will increase the performance of the virtual machine because it will not ask for these controller from the hardware, right? And now we are going to install operating system. So you can install it from the network, or you can attach the DVD. And currently I have a Windows 10 ISO file available, so I will select the Windows 10 ISO file. You can download this file from the internet, right? So I do have Windows 10 file available, and I just power on this one. Okay, one thing I missed, and that is uh, before VMware Workstation before VMware Workstation installation, I would recommend to enable virtualization technology from BIOS. Enable virtualization from BIOS, Dell. You can click images, you can go to your BIOS and you can enable virtualization technology, right? You can select this option. You can go to this one. I should mention that in the start, but you can do it and you can install operating system. So what we have learned today, we have learned that how we can create a virtual machine on the VMware Workstation, and we discussed some of the options of uh, during creation of the virtual machine. So once the installation is done, the next step is to install VMware tools, right? So install VMware tools once you're done with the installation. So I'm going to install operating system. Once the installation is finished, then you can right click on the virtual machine and you can click this button, install VMware tool. So once you click that, Then inside the virtual machine, go to my computer or file explorer and install VMware tools. Right? What is VMware tools? These are drivers of your virtual machine. Just like in physical machine, when you install operating system, you install sound card driver, VGA driver, Ethernet driver, Bluetooth driver, mousepad driver. So same is the case here. So must install VMware tools once you are done with the installation, right? So I hope you learned something today. Uh, I tried to answer most of the question, but for some of the questions, I just skipped those questions uh, because of the time and because of the situation. So hopefully we will touch base next week and then we can discuss other stuff. So before I leave, any question, guys? Let me save the recording first.